back to the Unfiltered Social Worker. I am S. Sinise. Have you ever experienced heartbreak? I'm pretty sure all of us have in some shape, form, or fashion. But what about your first job heartbreak? I remember it all too well. And the way that it came about was in the form of compassion, fatigue, and burnout. Being a social worker is a tough thing. It is only tough because of the empathy and love and compassion that one should have if you plan to be in this field. I don't think anyone actually becomes a social worker to become a millionaire or a thousandaire, as George Jefferson would say. So the money is definitely not a huge major factor in becoming one. The passion, the compassion, the love, the service is why we become social workers. I've learned more and more about myself, and I am so grateful for the decision and the influence that I had in becoming a social worker. I never thought, never in a million years, thought that I would actually be in a field such as this and really truly love it. But early on in the start of my career, I went in, all in. I wanted to save every child. I wanted to be such a influencer. I wanted to have such major impact. I wanted to give them so much wisdom, so much love, so much whatever I had, I was willing to just filter that all out. But I realized there's a balance that must be achieved in any field that you're having some level of compassion for. Because the more you give out, you need 2 times more coming back in. And I didn't have that in the most positive ways. This is unfiltered. I'm going to tell you the truth about things. I engaged in some really terrible self-care. When you're drinking alcohol to numb whatever spirits and energies that you've dealt with for that day. Now, I can tell you I was not an alcoholic because I did not consume my alcohol on everyday basis, but I could definitely tell you that when it was late and my coworkers wanted to meet up and go somewhere, oh yes, 2 for 1 was my friend because I had more than two. Or on Friday when I got paid, oh yes, there was going to be a fifth of Jack Daniels in my vehicle at some point. But I'm very blessed and fortunate that that did not allow me to get to the point of alcoholism. I knew my limits, because learning about these different things and learning about mental health and the impact that certain things have on your body, and actually working with individuals that had these issues, really just, I was able to just say, hey, whoop, you need to quit, you need to stop. But I also knew that that wasn't something that I needed to actually carry on for years on end. That's not the way that I wanted my life to be. I did not want to grow dependent on these negative things. And so, yeah, I tried to mask what was going on with me, giving more and not receiving as much. I went through depression. I went through anger. I was in a relationship and I felt like I was communicating how I was feeling verbally. But the way that I'm set up is my actions definitely spoke louder. And I have a terrible way of setting up my affect, my facial expressions and things of that nature. It can be really bad. And I also become I isolate myself. And by isolating myself, I didn't want to be bothered. I didn't want to have a conversation, and I definitely did not want to repeat myself about what I needed: space. I needed to be left alone. I needed to not have to hear this, that, and the other. And so I was really going through a snowball of different things because I was really putting so much into trying to save my clients, my patients, the children that I worked with, whatever label you want to put on it. Until one day, my affect got the best of me. I was deemed as the angry black woman. Every time someone saw me, I had a frown on my face. I smile now, and I smile more now than I have ever smiled. But back then, you couldn't get a smile out of me. I mean, you could, but I was in very extreme serious mode. And I don't know if that truly exists, but it definitely existed for me. And I started to become a target. A target was definitely on the center of my head. And I was always being approached and asked, do you want to be here? If you don't want to be here, find something else. And I thought, how dare you say such a thing? But sometimes when you don't get the help you need, when you don't practice good, healthy self-care, you actually can put yourself in a position to self-destruct. And that's what I did. To the point that I was terminated from my job. A job that I had spent with the company for almost 9 years in this particular position. I was in that for about 3 years, and I just let it get the best of me. There were times that I heard the voice in my head, which was God, telling me you need to leave. But I kept telling God that I needed to pay my bills because I'm on my own. I have no one else to depend on. I'm not running home to mama and daddy. I'm on my own. I'm an adult. So I have to keep this job because you blessed me with a job. But if you've watched a previous video, I talked about stepping out on faith. And here I was in a situation that I truly, truly knew the experience of stepping out on faith. But I was so caught up in my burnout and in my fatigue that I actually allowed myself to just let that dangle on off the cliff somewhere. And I never forgot about it. I just didn't latch back on to actually doing it. And so God took that away. Like, okay, since you don't want to leave on your own, like I'm telling you, how about we just rid this all together? And so, yeah, that was my first heartbreak on the job. It was a job that I loved. It was a job that I enjoyed. I really felt like it was my ministry. I started to really, really develop who I was as a counselor, as a therapist. And then it was gone. But always know this: it's hard working in the field of service because not everybody's going to get what your purpose is in this. Not everybody's going to see your vision. You've heard it before. I get the vision. I tell you about my vision, and you look at me as if something is crazy. Like, why would you want to do that? But my vision is created for me. It ain't for everybody to understand. And that goes with service. A lot of people don't understand why I'm a social worker. They know I don't get paid much, but it's not about the monetary all the time. Yes, I do need to live, but it's about fulfilling the purpose and the calling on my life as a social worker. That is the ultimate pleasure, the ultimate fulfillment. I'm so grateful for that. You know, as a social worker, you truly want to see your people, your clients, the people you serve, you want to see them achieve their best. but we meet them where they are in their life, in their journey, and we try to help guide them in the direction they need to go. That's why I love working with children. This is the opportunity to mold them, to take out those pieces that don't matter, to allow them to see that, and to help them reshape the importance of the things that they need to be the best you. You need that. And I was so, and I still am that way, but I have learned to curb my enthusiasm towards that, because I can't want it more than my clients and the patients that I work with. I can't want that more than you. And so, hey, that's a tough thing to have to deal with when you're talking about being compassionate, and you can be overly compassionate, and it definitely can lead to burnout. You always want your clients, your patients, you want them to see what you see. If I can see that you can achieve certain things, how come you can't? I feel like it's my duty and my job to create this, or really not create it, but to bring light, to shed light on those things that I see. But it's hard when the other person doesn't see it. And a lot of times when we're talking about trying to encourage someone else, there are layers to get to that point. I have to take off the layer of PTSD. I have to take off the layer of abuse, whether it be sexual or physical or emotional or financial. I have to take off the layer of no self-esteem. I have to take off the layer of no self-love. I have to take off the layer of whatever the case is, just to get to the point where you see your potential. It's hard when you're compassionate about actually being the person to take off those layers just to reveal this masterpiece, and hoping that they can see this masterpiece too. It's tough out here. It's tough at times as a social worker. In the field of mental health, it has always been my thought process that each and every individual that is in this field has compassion, that they have empathy. A lot of times, I'm coming across people that don't think like me, of course, but they lack those two important things. They have no empathy, they have no compassion. That irks me. How could you possibly be in this field and not care about the people you work with? We're working with a system, within a system, the family system. And the only thing you care about, I don't even know what you care about, to be honest with you, because as soon as I come across a person that does not care, I do not want to be around them. Their energy is off. Stay away from them. Stay away from me. There's nothing that we could possibly talk about, because at this point, I feel like I can't really convince you to care. If you don't have that on your own, it's really, really hard to work with individuals that think like me, in the point of being a servant, in the point of helping others achieve their best. I've come across individuals in the field of social work that will talk extremely bad about a person's situation. Well, why can't they do this? Well, why can't they do that? Why do they think this way? Why do they behave this way? And I'm thinking, did you not go to school? Did you not learn about these stressors that people go? Aren't you a human being? Are you perfect? But it's hard working out here where you don't really come across a lot of like-minded individuals. But I've learned that that's okay, because God is going to put me in view, or in the company of those that I need to be around. And I am so grateful that at this point in my career that I've definitely come across those individuals, and they are the best people for me. One of the many things that I recall during my first job heartbreak was the long hours that I put in. At times, my work week would never be 40 hours. It would be 60 here, it would be 70 hours. We're talking about 1 week, not a paycheck, 2 week paycheck. We're talking about in 1 week. But it was because I really wanted to help my clients. I really, really wanted to be there. I really wanted to listen to them and help them to navigate. We're talking about, I was working with teenage boys that for some of them, it was the last opportunity in their teenage year or years to actually try to get it right, to actually try to redeem themselves, to reform themselves, to do better. And so I felt that if I just took the time to listen and address whatever I could shed light on, because we're talking about there were a lot of layers with these children. And their layers did not just start with them, it started with their families. But it was so much. It was so many late hours, so many early mornings, because I got to the point that I overcared. Because I really truly thought that I could help. And I'm not dismissing the fact that I know that I have. But I think sometimes that I did not help in the ways that I think I could have. But that's part of that fatigue. That was part of the burnout. That's a serious thing that you have to deal with as a social worker. Who cares? Who has empathy? Who has compassion? Who's in tune with being a servant? Who enjoys helping others be their best? I hope that you have gathered a little bit more information about compassion fatigue and burnout. It is real. It is real for doctors. It is real for social workers, mental health practitioners. It is real for teachers. It's real for nurses. It's real for construction workers. It's real for anybody that is compassionate about what they're doing in their careers, in their life. Stay tuned for the next video. Don't forget to leave a comment about this topic, as well as ask any question, because this is unfiltered. I'm the unfiltered social worker. Hey, I'm all for it. I'm all for it. Ask away.